Hi everybody, today we're going to take a quick look at measures of position. We're going to start by looking at quartiles, and really what I want you to hear is quarters. So what we're doing is we're taking our numbers and we're breaking it up into fourths. So the first quarter we call Q1, the second quarter we call Q2, the third quarter we call Q3, and then when we get to the end, that is Q4. So the word we use to go with our quarters is just quartiles. And you can see we have 25% of the data in each of the quartiles. A little bit though, what you want to think about is the median breaks up our whole data into 50% below and 50% above. So a lot of times when we talk about quartiles, we're looking at what's underneath it. So we have 50% of the data less than quartile 2. We have 25% of the data less than quartile 1, and then we would have 75% of the data less than quartile 3. So it just kind of says, where do you fit into the different quarters of the data? To find the quartiles, we need to divide our data into 4 equal parts. The first quartile, denoted Q1, divides the bottom 25% from the rest of the data. So that's 25% below, 75% above. The second quartile, Q2, divides 50% below from 50% above. And then our last quartile, denoted Q3, says I have 75% below Q3 and only 25% above Q3. So to find the quartiles, we need to do a few steps. The first step is going to be arrange the data into ascending order. Then we want to find the middle. So we're going to go about finding our median, and that's going to be Q2. From there, we are going to say half of the data was below, half of the data is above. So in the bottom half, we're going to find the middle of the bottom half, and that's going to be our Q1, and then we'll find the middle of the top half, and that's going to be Q3. So let me show you what that looks like. So we're going to start with an odd number of data points. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 data points, which says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The middle is the 5th one, so this I'm going to label as Q2. Then I look at this bottom quarter, 10, 15, 20, and 22, and I'm looking for the middle. So since I have an even number of data points right now, the middle is going to be the two numbers, 15 and 20 put together, and then divide by 2. So 15 plus 20 gives me 35. I divide by 2, and that says 17.5. So this is going to be Q1. So Q1 is 17.5, Q2 is 27, and then Q3, I'm going to go 32, 35, 40, and 77, and I'm again going to take the middle two, 35 plus 40, and divide by 2. So that gives me 75 over 2, which is 37.5. So that gives me Q3. So now I can see my first quartile, 17.5, my second quartile, which is the median, is 27, and then the third quartile is 37.5. Let's just write this little checkpoint down that if there are an odd number of data values, we are not going to use the median when we're figuring out the first quartile and the third quartile. We kind of leave it out because it's not included in either one. Now let's look at what happens when I have an even number of data points. So now I have an even number of data points, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I go to the middle, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 5th and 6th, that would be, see how I have 4 below, 4 above, and then 2 in the middle. So I'm going to start by finding Q2, which is the median. So I do 92 plus 112, and I divide by 2. This gives me 102, and let me label that as Q2. Now this time, when I go to do Q1, I'm going to split. So here's me splitting the data points, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 below this 102 value, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 values above the 102 value. So I'm going to look for the middle one. So that would be 33. This will be my Q1. And then same thing on the right, 112, 215, 257 is in the middle, so this is my Q3. So there is a little difference between what to do when I have an even number of data points and an odd number of data points. Here's how I have it written out. So if I have an even number of data values, we get to include the smaller number on the left of the middle when I look at Q1, and then I use the higher number, so right beside the median, I use that number to go into figuring out Q3. So related to that is something called the Interquartile Range. So this is the range of the middle 50% of the observations in the data. We're going to call this the IQR. And to find the IQR, it's just the difference between Q3 and Q1. So IQR is Q3 minus Q1. So let's go back to an example we had earlier. We found Q1 is 17.5 and we found Q3 is 37.5. So our IQR, our interquartile range, is 37.5 minus 17.5, which is 20. So it says there's this value, 20, that shows me the difference between Q1 and Q3. So why do we do that? Part of why we find the IQR is that when we're performing data analysis, it's important to look for extreme observations in the data. So this extreme could be really high or really low, and we call this an outlier. To find the extreme data values, we have to start by finding some cutoff values that we're going to call fences. So the lower fence will come from the first quartile, and we're going to subtract 1.5 times the RQR. And then the upper fence, we're going to take Q3 and we're going to add 1.5 times the IQR. So data values lower than the lower fence or higher than the upper fence are called outliers. So they're really extremes there. So let's say this, say we worked in the service industry and we got tips during a particular shift that were 1, 5, 9, 10, 12, 15, 17, 20, 25, and 50. And I'm going to say, are there any outliers there? So what do I need to do to figure out if they're outliers? I need to know a few things. I need to know what is Q1, what is Q3, what's the IQR, and then we can look for our fences. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 data points. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth and sixth. This will help me find my median. I don't really need it, but it's still nice to get. So 12 plus 15, then divided by 2 says my median, so I'm going to write M, is 13.5. Let's write that line again. I think that's really helpful. So I have the 1, 5, 9, 10, and 12. So 9 being in the middle, so this is my first quartile. And then 15, 17, 20, 25, and 50. 20, that's the third quartile. So my IQR will be 20 minus 9, which is 11. So this says there's my 50%, right? 50% I expect to be between 9 and 20, which gives me a range there of 11 data values. All right, so my lower fence, I'm going to write it out for us. We have Q1 minus 1.5 times the IQR. So my Q1 was equal to 9. I'm going to subtract 1.5 times 11. This gives me a value of negative 7.5, which hopefully we're thinking, well, that doesn't make sense. I can't get a negative tip. Let's go upper fence. The upper fence says you're going to take Q3, but this time you're going to add 1.5 times the IQR. So Q3 was 20. I have 1.5, and then my IQR was 11. So let's do 20 plus 1.5 times 11. This gives me 36.5. So to find outliers, I'm going to go back to my tips. I'm going to look for anything lower than negative 7.5, which I don't see. My smallest was 1. For a large outlier, I'm looking for anything over 36.5, and I do see this one, 50. 50 would be an outlier because it's higher than our upper fence.